Welcome to the F-Tier Nuzlocke. What, you thought we'd be entering the year of our Lord 2025 without doing at least one of these? Get out of here. This is not the first time we have taken on Generation 5 in this challenge, but the last time we did, we actually only took on the sequel game of White 2, which has a wide array of encounters that are not available in Black and White. In fact, they may as well just be entirely different regions in the first place. So today, we are turning back the clock and taking on Pokemon Black as a hardcore F-Tier Nuzlocke instead. This series of F-Tier challenges has had a lot of different interpretations over the last year or so that I've been making them, but it started as one simple idea. The idea that I could find a tier list of Pokemon made by another creator or community and take only what they personally considered to be the worst Pokemon in the game in order to beat a hardcore Nuzlocke. That idea evolved as it continued when I wasn't able to find tier lists for specific games, going so far as to create my own list with your guys' input. But the original, stubborn, good for you but I'm built different mentality never really left. Which is why when I randomly came across this tier list from Smogon, of all places, that fire inside me started to burn once again. And that is probably because this is one of, if not the, strangest tier lists that I have ever seen. For starters, everyone knows that tier lists go A, B, C, D, F. Why is there an E tier? Rookie mistake, Smogon, I would have thought you'd know better. Anyway, this tier is filled with some, let's just say interesting choices. Pokemon that Smogon states to have, and I quote, flaws that outshine their strengths. Awesome. Although by their own admission, there are some actually decent Pokemon in here as well that they just deem to simply be obtainable too late in the game to really be of much use. Personally, I disagree with this logic because that's how you get weird shit like Thundurus being ranked below Patrat, and that's just weird. Now, I'm gonna level with you for a second. I had a whole multi-paragraph segment here explaining my thought process on changes that I did or did not make for our encounters and yada yada. But unfortunately, viewer retention is everything, and I'm not going to assume that you need every little thing explained to you. So let's just cut to the chase. Generally speaking, I don't allow legendaries in my regular Nuzlockes, so I went ahead and just gutted them from the list entirely. So that leaves us with this group of possible encounters, and I mean, go ahead, take a nice long look at them. Do you notice anything? Could it be that half of them do not evolve? So I've made up my stubborn mind, but we still aren't even able to start the game. And that's because even though I allow myself to use the starter Pokemon to beat up Sharon and Bianca in my house for the tutorial to conclude, we still can't progress because we have several fights coming up that fall under what I call major battles. And by my very official Hardcore Nuzlocke rules, when playing with any kind of encounter restrictions, be that monotype runs or color locks, or in our case today, an F-Tier Nuzlocke, we need to have a Pokemon that meets that restriction criteria before taking on any of those major battles in order for the run to really be legitimate. Now, I could solve this by simply adding a Route 1 Pokemon to our list. I mean, who's really going to argue that Patrat is not F-Tier, right? But I didn't want to just add new Pokemon to the list and call it a day. Patrat, and by extension Watchog, is not a bad Pokemon at all, really. Not for the early game, at least. Adding him myself felt disingenuous. I have done this in the past, swapping around some Pokemon in tiers just because they made more sense to me in a Nuzlocke setting, but that was because, at least in the case of my Scarlet run, the tier list I referenced was not made by in-game playthrough standards. Most lists I've referenced, and this one specifically, are made with in-game playthroughs in mind, which means we will be looking into a personal favorite option of mine, event Pokemon. You know them, you love them, and if you had a childhood that involved begging your parents to take you to Toys R Us just because you had to have this downloadable critter, then you and I are the same. All we need now is to find a distributed Pokemon that matches one of the species in our 9 possible options, and that is within our level cap. And as luck would have it, there is exactly one Pokemon that fits that criteria, only ever distributed as a local event in Japan and Korea. Give it up for this egg, which hatches into Freddy the Shiny Dino. This particular event Pokemon was actually distributed as an egg, meaning we are the original trainer and it will obey us in battle without any worry, getting us around the whole obedience problem we suffered through in other runs. Even better than that though, this Pokemon also comes equipped with Dragon Rage, meaning we can mow down everything that comes across our path. N down, Bianca defeated, Sharon destroyed, Silent deconstructed. I ran out of words starting with D, I'm sorry. Oh, and for everyone in the camp of, well, Patrat would have been harder, so actually blah 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 blah. Well, here's him beating all the same fights pretty handily, actually. What you are seeing now is a few clips from the most recent members only video for a series where we are currently taking on this same challenge, except I made my own tier list and yes, Patrat was included. Personally, I thought the Smogon list was more fun and at least thought-provoking as to why those Pokemon were considered the worst at all, but Hey, if you're interested in seeing another take on this challenge, consider supporting the channel and becoming a member today. For just $3 a month, you'll get access to that full series as it comes out, all of my reaction and breakdown videos, and much more coming in the future. But back in this reality, Dino has pretty much outgrown the usefulness of Dragon Rage, but we're coming up on the second gym, and we're still a hard stone throw away from any other possible encounter. Now, the second end fight is easy enough, and Dino does learn Thief, which gets us access to whatever items we might need at this point, but the gym fight against Lenora proved to be probably the biggest roadblock to this whole thing. We proved that much at least during my live stream of this challenge, where I worked with you guys to brainstorm what I correctly predicted would be one of two major pain points for the run. You see, Lenora is a normal type specialist, and she's here to show off the new move Retaliate to the player. Retaliate is a 70 base power move that doubles into a 140 base power move if one of your other Pokemon faints on the previous turn. And that's all fine and dandy, except it isn't, because Dino does not survive that attack. One idea I had was to fill up our Pokedex with 60 seen Pokemon in order to force Professor Juniper to give us the TM for Protect, but yeah, from the discussions we had on stream and over Discord, without just giving myself every other event Pokemon, the maximum we could count up to was a little over 30, so that just wasn't going to realistically happen. Fortunately, in our testing, we found out that Lenora is not very smart, and very rarely actually uses Retaliate on the turn that it would have double the power. That's because the AI loves status moves, and Watchog has two of them, Hypnosis and Leer. The other relevant factor here is that the only way to outspeed her lead Herdier with Dino is with a perfect speed IV and a plus speed nature, which is why I soft reset for those at the beginning of the run. Yeah, that's what I did. Oh, and by utilizing items from the Dream World. The Dream World is technically available right after the first gym, even if it actually shut down, but whoops. It is meant to give the player access to all kinds of new Pokemon and items though, so just to make the run possible, we gave ourselves access to those things as well. There have been some runs where I have allowed Dream World Pokemon for encounters, or at least runs in the future that will, teehee, but I don't think I've ever even considered the items from there. But to be honest, despite how easy I thought this run would be with a first glance at Smogon's list, without having access to these items as well as things like vitamins to give me an EV boost, I don't think the next stretch would have been at all possible. To that end, it's kind of fun that my test stream for this run is still up as a memento, and if you enjoy that kind of thing, let me know, because I would love to be able to do more of those in the future. Generally speaking, I tend to try these challenges first as just a casual run, and then break down any particularly tough pieces for the Nuzlocke, and that's when I have to start digging into research, calculations, and sometimes the rule breaking I have to do to get around those roadblocks. Really, what I'm saying is a lot more time goes into these videos than you might think, so if you're enjoying the video at any point, please be sure to leave it a like and consider subscribing. It would really mean a lot. Okay, enough shilling. Let's just see how we actually did get around Lenora. I kind of wish I could say that I found some super niche, complex, or hidden strategy, the one thing that made it possible, but not really. After making sure Freddy can outspeed both of her Pokemon, we lead the fight off with Bite for the potential to flinch, then pick up the KO on Herdier the next turn with Dragon Rage. Then we do the exact same thing to Watchog, managing to avoid the first Hypnosis, but we are holding a Chesto Berry just in case it lands. And then yeah, Gym 2 is done, case closed. Like so many puzzles, often the execution is simple once the solution is learned. As the saying goes, measure twice, cut once. Thanks, Genji. So wise. The following forest pursuit isn't anything our dragon can't handle, but what I am being careful to watch is our current experience level. We have quite a few mandatory fights before the next gym, and our level cap isn't increasing by much, so I try to avoid as many optional trainers as I can. Fortunately, after clearing Team Plasma in the forest and Castellia City, and then mopping out all the trainers in the gym, yes, even the optional guy I accidentally made pop out, whoops, we are just under the level cap to fight Burgh. Problem now is, though, we are trying to use a basic Dark-type Pokemon against a guy with 3 evolved bugs. Well, 2 evolved bugs and a Dwebble, but it's a really scary Dwebble, okay? Fortunately, we have access to a lot more potential tools now than we did against Lenora. One such item we can obtain simply requires us to run into a few more wild Pokemon in order to get over the 20 scene requirement, and then this guy will give us a fancy schmancy Eviolite. And that's it, so Burgh time! Whirlipede makes the tactical decision to lower our defense with Screech, and already I know we are in for a bad time. Fortunately, Burgh gets stuck in the healing cycle, using up all his potions before Dragon Rage finally lands the knockout. Despite our lower defense though, the Eviolite puts in work anyway, letting us easily tank Dwebble Smackdown before sending it back to its Pokeball. So as it turns out, the only bug move Burgh's Pokemon actually have is Struggle Bug. Our buff special defense makes them really not want to hit us on that side because of the physical special split, regardless of the effectiveness of the move. And that is all thanks to Whirlipede, who gave us a lower defensive stat because, say it with me now, AI love their status moves. That just means after Leviani gets her Protect out of the way, it tries for a resisted Razor Leaf before falling just the same. So tell me again who would win? 3 well-trained man-sized bugs or 1 good dark dragon doggo boy? Yes, you are a good boy. Yes, you are. Bianca blocks her way out of the city, but with Pig Knight being the only real threat on her team, we get through her with Dragon Rage and Crunch pretty easily. Sharon tries to roadblock us just ahead on a route covered in a terrible constant sandstorm, and since we gave the fighting type to Bianca, which was definitely planned, yep, there's nothing particularly threatening coming from him either. We do have to set up a workup this time though, as we're playing a bit on a timer thanks to the weather, but a Crunch at +1 even with our minus attack nature because we're timid, whoops, one-shots everything on his team except for Lipard, which is a Lipard so it falls anyway, and we make it clear of him with low HP because of the weather, getting past him all the same. And that means finally, 3 gyms, 9 I think rival fights, and only 1 Pokemon to our name, we finally enter into Nimbasa City, where we are forced to beat up these Plasma Grunts. Okay, but after that, we are free to leave the city, if only briefly, enter onto Route 5, and search around in the grass until we find and catch Ennard the Trubbish. That's right, we are actually allowed to catch other Pokemon in what so far has been a Dino-only Nuzlocke. Woohoo! But then again, it's just a Trubbish, so don't get too excited. Ennard does help sponge some of the experience when we're forced to battle N and from the Ferris wheel though, and we do give him the Eviolite instead of Dino, as he's going to be pivotal to shutting down gym leader Elesa as well. Just you watch. While not quite a status move, AI also love their switching moves. In this case, Volt Switch. It isn't exactly a very strong move either, meaning with Eviolite and Stockpile to bolster our defenses, Ennard can stay in to take Volt Switch after Volt Switch while he chips away at Elisa's 2 rats with repeated uses of Sludge. The damage and poison racks up, causing one to finally fall, and bringing in Zebstrika while Ennard swallows his Stockpile to restore his HP. Still, the Eviolite keeps him in the fight while the Zebra lands a lucky critical hit with Spark, but the little trash bag that could has already punctured huge holes in Elisa's defenses, meaning the easy switch on a resisted hit lets us bring out Freddy, who can make quick work of Elisa's last 2 Pokemon and win us the battle. But if there's one thing that defines Generation 5, it's the absurd evolution levels. But if there's a second thing that defines Generation 5, it's the equally absurd number of rival fights. So of course Sharon is waiting for us the second we take 1 step out of the city. We literally just fought this guy, I swear. Well, the good news is his team is pretty much the same as last time, and since Freddy and the band only get more restless as the week progresses, there isn't much we have to repeat here. Sharon, come back when you feel like you can put up a real challenge, okay? Now we are free to cross everybody's favorite drawbridge into Driftveil City. Cue the music! It's also here that we'll be picking up 2 brand new encounters. Firstly, just north of Driftveil, we get to catch a wild Carablast that we name Bonnie, clearly blue, and we'll also be making use of another event distribution thanks to our new level cap of 31. You see, there are not a lot of events for Generation 5 Pokemon in the base Black and White games, and even fewer of those include the bottom of the barrel Mons that we are using today. However, aside from the Dino Egg, there is one other event that we can obtain, and that is the Summer 2011 event that would give players a Carablast, who we now already have, or a Shelmet. Problem is that these events around the world distributed these 2 Pokemon at level 50. However, Japan's version of this event, which happened a year prior in 2010, actually distributed these Pokemon at level 30 instead, exactly 1 level under our cap, and fittingly from the same region as where we would have had to obtain our Dino Egg. Look at me following continuity. Meet Springtrap. With both of our little bugs in tow, we are no longer worried about the Plasma Grunts that we have to face in the cold storage, or the trainers we have to face off against inside the gym. Speaking of that gym, Clay is, the other major pain point for the run. Specifically, his Excadrill, which resists all of my bug and dark type attacks, and is also immune to poison. I just know going in that somebody is probably gonna have to bite the dust. Dust, yeah, get it, ground gym. God, I'm clever. But that's okay, because as soon as we get through the gym, we'll open up a few new encounters that will carry us through the next portion of the game anyway. All we gotta do is get there. Clay leads off the match with his Krokorok, and I decide to lead off with Shelmet. This is because the Croc has 2 status moves that it's going to want to use at the start before anything else: Torment and Swagger. As long as we're slower than him anyway, more on that in a bit. Regardless of which one of those 2 moves it goes for, we want to yawn the crocodile to sleep and then switch out. When it goes for Torment, we are in the best possible position to bring in Freddy on the now expected Swagger, eat our Lumberry to cure confusion, and then watch as Krokorok helplessly falls asleep. Now, Freddy, in his max speed ways, will also now bait the Croc into going for Bulldoze, because even more than status moves, AI love to be faster when they can be. So when the Croc wakes up, the very first thing it's going to do is use Bulldoze to lower our speed. But at this point, Freddy has already reached +4 attack thanks to 2 extra turns of workup, though obviously we're not out of the woods yet. Now that we're outsped, Croc will go for, again, either Torment or Swagger, one of the status moves. Swagger will help us hit a better range later, but confuse us, whereas Torment will keep our health decently high, but prevent us from spamming Crunch like we want to. Croc goes for its attack and uses Torment. Okay, so we don't have to deal with confusion, but we still need some RNG on our side anyway, because now we really can't afford to miss a move just because of our hustle ability. Another fun fact, and I had to look up a whole sheet of trainer Pokemon stats just to learn this, but Clay's Croc has a negative defense nature. And that is extremely relevant because thanks to that flaw, a +4 boosted Crunch, even resisted, will actually one-shot the annoying alligator and finally put us ahead in the fight. Although next in is, of course, Excadrill. Believe it or not, it doesn't have a clean kill here, which means it is basically guaranteed to use Home Claws, giving us 1 free attack. Unfortunately, because of Torment, Crunch is locked out, and Bite is not nearly enough damage. But we don't have much of a choice. However, even resisted, Bite still takes a solid 2/3 of Excadrill's HP, so I can't really complain. And then we get to the next fun bit that we're going to abuse. Excadrill's strongest move is his Stab Bulldoze. However, it is disincentivized from using it because we're already slower than he is, which means the only move he can really go for here is Rock Slide, which not only has a chance to miss, but because it isn't boosted by Stab, doesn't have an outright kill on us. The only thing that could screw us over now would be, like a crit or a flinch or a hustle miss. In fact, that's what my notes say here. Good luck. Thanks, pass me. Very helpful. So yeah, all we need to do is avoid all of that. Easy. Holy shit, he actually did it. Freddy is the GOAT. And that's the fight, really. Palpitoad is Clay's last Pokemon, but it isn't too bad of an issue. Shelmet tries to handle it, but Muddy Water's accuracy drops prevent him from hitting all the Mega Drains he needs to, and then Ennard switches into a critical hit, so okay, maybe it isn't actually over yet. But our trash bag pulls through, with Stockpile, Swallow, and Leftovers keeping him just barely in the fight, and Sludge Bomb landing a sweet poison to whittle down the bulky frog. It is a cruel and unusual war of attrition, but Ennard does come out on top. That is, of course, until Clay breaks out his 2 Hyper Potions. Now with us out of Sludge Bombs and him out of Muddy Waters, we bring in the undamaged Bonnie, who can finish out the fight with just a few Fury Cutters. And that is Badge 5 obtained. Although the celebration is short-lived. We can't increase our levels by much since we've got a full Cave of Grunts to fight before our next badge, and we've got an incoming Bianca fight happening before we can even head in that direction. Shelmet being our new lead gives me such ease of mind. Putting intimidating Pokemon to sleep to give us a real fighting chance is awesome. Even though Bianca tries to set up her Herdier, we still have plenty of time to get out our Leftovers wielding Trubbish on the field, set up Stockpiles and Toxic Spikes, and can even take it out with a few Sludge Bombs. Musharna on her team does have Psywave, but it also has a lot of status moves, so not only is it not likely to ever really attack us, but even if it does, it won't be hitting us very hard despite the super effective damage. So we just stall it out while the poison does its job. Pignite lands a lucky critical hit turn 1, but that isn't enough to keep it ahead of the game. Basically what I'm saying is this is a full and easy sweep for Ennard, and poor Bianca is just scooped in the process. Oh, she also has a Pansage. Had a Pansage. Whoops. Chargestone Cave is one of my favorite places, but unfortunately every time I seem to visit, it is just crawling with Team Plasma goons. My second least favorite kind of goon, for the record, just barely above Galactic. Fortunately, we have enough Pokemon to share the experience around, and like me, they seem to still be stuck with non-evolved Pokemon. So at least we're on an even playing field. That is, until we run into N, who is blocking the cave exit. He leads off with a Bulldor against Freddy, but Dragon Pulse is a nice and easy 2-shot against both it and the Joltik that follows. Ferroseed is a bit trickier, with me letting Bonnie come in to rack up some damage with Fury Cutter, but unfortunately the Iron Barbs proved to deal too much damage for him. But we did leave Ferroseed's health low enough that Freddy can come in and get around the Seed's heightened defense with a bit more Dragon Pulsing. And the answer to Clink is, well, about what you'd expect, just a bit scarier. See, here I am thinking that I'm so clever and I'll just stall it out with Springtrap, Yawn, and Acid Armor, but no. You can see that this particular set of gears has Charge Beam, which continues to raise their special attack. Fortunately, we can knock them low enough still and put them to sleep so that when Freddy comes back in on a resisted electric move and not gear grind, our hungry dinosaur can clean up the final kill. Maybe my poor baby bugs really aren't cut out for combat. But before we can take on Skyla at the next gym, we are forced to climb this region's version of Pokemon Tower. And since most of the guys in here are trying to use Psychic types against my team of Dino and Insects, they don't stand to have a very nice time. But I know who you're really curious about, that dickwad with a Stoutland that killed off our zebra last time. Well, I am happy to inform you that I have learned from that mistake, and I certainly did not go in underestimating him with even weaker Pokemon. What do you mean they're showing the fight? Are they really? Okay, so we maybe almost lost Freddy to a stray takedown, and then we maybe got our Shelmet frozen on the switch in, and then we maybe almost lost him to a Fire Fang before finally letting Ennard put down the dog, but we didn't, so take that. Oh, hey, look over there, it's Skyla. Skyla's Woobat is not as tough as it looks, and a single crunch will take it down pretty easily. Unpheasant starts spamming Leer, so we switch to Ennard, who is more than happy to set up stockpiles because most of Skyla's strongest attacks are special anyway, so with 3 under his belt, it doesn't really matter what Unpheasant wants to do. Sludge Bomb manages to poison, and Swallow keeps him in the fight. But the overgrown pigeon proves to be one tough bird. At one point, we even swap out a Spring Trap just to reset Ennard's defense drops, which ultimately proves fruitless when we just swap him back in on another Leer anyway. Yuck. But still, eventually our Fortress of Flatulence proves to be insurmountable, and Unpheasant perishes while our Trash and Snail stand supreme. Against Swanna, we manage to yawn it to sleep while it sets up Aqua Ring, which gives us the opportunity to bring back in Ennard. Once the Swan is awake, it's met with a Toxic Sludge that will whittle away its HP slowly but surely turn after turn. Ennard does fall low at a certain point, but Freddy is still in the back at full HP, ready to eat up an attack for a free switch. In fact, he survives 2 air slashes while chunking down Swanna's HP with Crunch, before swapping out himself to Springtrap, who easily takes an Aerial Ace from inside of his metal prison, watching the life drain from Skyla's ace Pokemon as it finally succumbs to the poisoning. Badge 6 is obtained in beautiful fashion, and this leads directly into Ennard getting a much-deserved evolution, our very first one in the game 6 badges later, into Garbodor. Woohoo! Of course, that means our squad still consists of 3 unevolved Pokemon and a Garbodor, but fortunately for all parties involved, we're going to be changing that real soon. We just need to get past one more roadblock. One more fight and then we scale, I promise. And that fight is, of course, Sharon. This man has the audacity to stand here in the pouring rain and tell me I'm not allowed to climb this mountain. How dare he? And thus our showdown begins, him with a weird turkey and me with a garbage monster. Turn 1 goes about how I expect, with the bird taunting me because it's a status move and because I also have a status move, and that prevents me from getting the easy Toxic. Damn, but that's fine. We still heavily outdamage the Unpheasant with Sludge Bomb and KO it well before it poses any real threat. Simipour does come in next, and though we deal decent damage with Sludge Bomb and even poison it, we're still forced to switch out to Freddy to resist Scald because the boosted rain damage is too much for us to take. In fact, it's even too much for poor Freddy to take, and we bring in Springtrap, who actually takes the hit much better, thanks to him now holding the Eviolite. I swear, it's just been passed around like a hot potato in this game. With that, we cut it close, but Giga Drain combined with poison damage chopped down the monkey. Of course, because we cut it so close, it's time to switch out once Servine comes into play. Even at low HP though, Ennard can come in to soak up some hits, start healing itself with leftovers, and take out the Grassy Snake with a bomb made of sludge. And then against Lipard, I see the opportunity to switch in on a low power fake out, bringing in Bonnie for his chance on the stage. The tiny bug still holds a massive attack stat, and Lipard learns that the hard way after getting 2-shot by Fury Cutter. Our battling prowess must have impressed this crazy-haired old man, since he jumps right off a cliff in the rain to reward me with the HM for Surf. And that alone opens up 2 brand new encounters. They do require a little bit of backtracking, but on Route 18, this man will give us an egg. You know what that hatches into. And the rippling water on, well, pretty much any route, will also find us face to face with the ultimate savior of the run, without whom it would not be able to continue, Roxy the Alomomola. The trainers in Twist Mountain do not stand a chance to even dent our defensive behemoth. Roxy is a rock star in her own right. I can't say I've ever used an Alomomola before, but man, the fact that this is considered F tier with access to Wish and just such an insane health pool is, well, insane. But let's put that to the test, shall we? After hatching our egg, meet Baby. She's a baby and will always be a baby. Not because we aren't allowed to evolve her, no, but because we, can't. But a fire type into an ice gym is still massively appreciated, so on to Bryson. Just take a look at Baby in action. 1-shotting Vanillux, 2-shotting Beartic, Almost. Well, Eviolite keeps her in the fight anyway, and then the bear makes the mistake of raising our attack, so... Oh, and Bryson only had 2 Pokemon in this fight? That's weird. Must have been some kind of bug. Anyway. Now we're forced to fight up Dragon Spiral Tower, take on Plasma Grunts, yada yada. I'm sorry if I sound bored of these guys, but it's just because I kinda am. Really, it's hilarious. I have been non-stop fighting Rocket Grunts in streams of Fire Red Omega, Radical Red, and Sacred Gold, but I am more bored fighting these guys for this one video than all of that combined. Jeez. Although, for the sake of fairness, I want to touch on this one little gauntlet that they put you through. I mean, fighting 4 grunts in a row? Sounds pretty tough for my team of little guys, doesn't it? Grunt 1 loses his Watchog and Krokorok to Freddy's Pulsing Dragon. Well, that just sounds wrong. Grunt 2 has another Croc, so we switch in Roxy to drown it with a Water Pulse. Grunt 3 leads off with a bag of garbage that we let Bonnie in to slash to death, and then we give the same treatment to the Liepard that comes out next. And finally, Grunt 4 is forced to put his Meerkat against the full force of Ennard, who fires enough bombs on it to overload a sewer. If you know what I mean. Anyway, the top of Dragon Spiral Tower shows N using a Ouija board to summon a demon, and then he kicks us out. That leaves us with only one thing left to do, and that is progress towards the next gym. But before we can do that, it has been about 5 minutes since our last rival fight, and the game knows that, so time to fix it, I suppose. My arch nemesis Stoutland leads the fight as we go up against Bianca, but this time we have Garbodor in tow to match it. Weak armor on Ennard has really been a mixed bag in this run, but Stockpile still keeps him in the fight long enough for Toxic Poisoning to eat away at the poor dog. Though, as a final battle cry, Roar drags in Freddy, who is now facing off against the incoming Emboar. Uh-oh. Okay, it's not actually as bad as it seems, since, you see, Emboar doesn't actually have any fighting-type attacks. So we stay in to get some Dragon Pulse damage off, take a takedown pretty solidly, if I do say so myself, and then switch in to Big Mama Roxy. Currently decked out purely for stall, setting up Aqua Ring, utilizing Wish and Protect to stay healthy, and Toxic to slowly chip away at opponents. It's not a matter of will an opponent fall to Roxy, it's just a matter of when. And despite Bianca's attempts to keep her health up with full restores, the clock waits for no one, especially not her Emboar. In the pig's final moments, Roxy passes a wish over to Ennard, who swaps in, is fully healed, and is there to watch the light fade from the pig's eyes. As usual, Musharna's only attacking move is Psybeam, meaning no matter what HP Freddy is at, he can sit there and eventually win out the fight. I don't know if this is some of the developers' way of showing that Bianca isn't a really great trainer. Those are her words, not mine. Or if it's just overall lazy trainer design, but most of her team suffers from problems just like this. No fighting move on Emboar, only one psychic move on Musharna, and the only decent attacking move on Pansage being Seed Bomb, which of course doesn't do much of anything to either Freddy or Ennard, the latter of which comes in quickly to win us the fight. We have 3 whole encounters left for us to get in the game, one of which is waiting for us right here on Route 9, where we can pick up Foxy the Poniard. The other half of the puzzle, along with Roxy, that makes this run possible. And I didn't plan on their names rhyming, it just kinda worked out that way. Though we won't be seeing him for at least a little bit, since we have to take on one of my least favorite gym puzzles of all time, and reach the top to fight the old man for Dragon Dominance. And I'll just say, it wouldn't be right for me to try and pass the gym trainers in here as easy. Some of them did give me trouble. Trouble as in I can't exactly sweep through any given decent trainer with this team. It has a lot of reliance on healing, tanking hits where I can, whittling down opponents with poisons and burns. The last half of this run really needed a lot of focus, and it just unfortunately doesn't translate very well into a video format. That being said, you will get a taste of what I mean as we go into the battle against Drayden. Unfortunately for him, those burns I mentioned are caused by Roxy, who is now equipped with Scald, and we pick up a lucky early burn against the lead fracture. This allows us to take our time while it tries to buff itself out of the deficit that the burn has put it into. Baby comes in after Drayden wastes 1 Hyper Potion, ready to set up a free speed boost with Flame Charge and grab the KO with Bug Bite, taking minimal damage from Dragon Rage in the process. Against Druddigon, she sits there to land a Toxic before switching out to Ennard, who immediately gets Dragon-tailed out to Springtrap. But Springtrap can take quite a few hits himself, going so far as to set up Acid Armor while watching the poison tick away at the opponent's life force. And since Drayden only has Hyper Potions, that means he has no way to remove the status. The damage will just keep racking up turn after turn until the dragon finally falls. Now we are facing off against Haxorus, so we swap back out to Roxy, knowing we need another burn before it sets up one too many dragon dances for us. And the 30% chance works out in our favor once more, crippling the giant beast while it dances to its heart's content. Dragontail brings out Freddy, so we swap back to Roxy. Freddy is dragged out again, Bonnie is forced in, Endure can ensure his survival, and without another healing item, the burn does its damage, Hexorus falls, and we have secured our final gym badge. Now with all 8 gym badges in hand, we rush out of town to pick up Chica the Vullaby. But before we can move any further, we have to backtrack ever so slightly, picking up not just 1, but 2 experience shares that may or may not come in handy for us. They could also potentially just screw over our expected experience gains, so who really knows? And then we're put up against our rival Sharon one more time, not even allowed to cross a goddamn bridge in this game, I swear to fucking God. Foxy with an Eviolite is actually quite a beast, to be fair. As our only steel type, even unevolved, he's being relied on to take a good number of hits. And he's got great synergy with Roxy and Energy. Sadly, he is unable to bolster his own bulk with Iron Defense after he becomes taunted by Sharon's Unpheasant, but what you gonna do? Well, I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna spam Metal Claw for the attack boost that it could potentially give, and eventually take down the overstuffed turkey because all it seems to want to do is taunt us. Simipour can prove to be a real issue. Not because it's particularly strong, but because Scald's burn chance will not be fun for us to deal with. Only I should be allowed to use the annoying moves. Case in point, when the burn brings our tiny pawn to the brink of death. Really thought he would take that better. The monkey falls low, but we just barely miss the kill thanks to Burn cutting our attack. We swap an Ennard right after, who does his best to clean up the mess and takes down Simipour. Superior is up in next, and that is totally fine because we can Sludge Bomb and then Toxic, switching ourselves out to Chica while it attempts to coil, and this works out great since Chica then sets up a Tailwind, allowing it to outspeed the next turn and use Air Slash to take out the snake before it can pull off any actual damage. Apparently, poor Sharon could never find a decent replacement for his Lipard. I feel for the guy, really. But it can't do anything to Chica, who just has too many tricks up her sleeve with Flatter to confuse, Tailwind outspeed, and Air Slash for potential flinches. Our 2 most recent encounters really showing off why they're locked till so late in the game. Even unevolved, decent dark types are just good. Speaking of the late game, we find ourselves now in Victory Road, home of our very last encounter. Meet Monty the Heatmore, who we will not be using. I know, crazy, right? He's probably one of our best Pokemon, but I've already used Heatmore in so many previous F-Tier Nuzlockes that it felt like a bit of a cop-out to use him now unless I really felt I had to. And the biggest issue with this game, and the reason why so many of these Pokemon are considered to be F-Tier in the first place, is because they couldn't evolve before the Elite Four. Well, I think it's time to prove them wrong. In the time between this video and my last F-Tier adventure, I've beaten a game using nothing more than basic baby Pokemon. I see no reason why we shouldn't be able to use a few of them here today. But he's been with us since the beginning. I think Freddy deserves his evolution at least, don't you? Although we are going to have to be leaving behind 2 other mainstays who have been with us for so long. Carablast and Shelmet just don't have the Elite Four potential. I'm sorry, guys. It's true. But their exclusion does make room for Foxy and Chica to be added to the band. And now, without any further ado, it is time for the Elite Four. And my actual runtime for this next portion, win or lose, I won't tell you yet, is only about half an hour. So probably going to be one of our quickest runs through a league yet. Hang on tight. Grimsley is up first. Baby comes out to face off against Scrafty, but unfortunately the damage she can deal isn't quite enough. So we are forced to backtrack on that idea for now. We use Chica to switch in on a resisted crunch, only take neutral damage from Brick Break, set up a Tailwind, and go to town with Air Slash. The super effective damage easily taking out Grimsley's first Pokemon, and the first KO of the Elite Four falls to a Vullaby. Crocodile is next out to play, but a simple switch to Roxy, and you already know how this is going to go. Scald lands an early burn, Aqua Ring and Wish keep her health up, and that's just too much for Crocodile to break down. But it's not just a him problem. Bisharp has all the same weaknesses, or at least most of them, which render it almost completely useless against Roxy as well. We watch him fall right after. And since Elite Four members only have 4 Pokemon in this game, and Grimsley didn't discover that Zoroark is a thing, I guess, all he has left is a Lipard. We have no reason to switch out now, and just allow Roxy to bring the victory home. All the while during this fight, Foxy and Chica are holding their experience shares to try and siphon off as much XP as possible. Will it be enough to evolve them? I did not do the math, so hopefully. Marshall is next up on the shit list, and his lead throw has Guts. which is not great for our team that relies a lot on status. Although I'll admit it legitimately doesn't matter. I don't even consider it when attacking. Even a doubled attack stat doesn't allow him to leave much more than a scratch on Roxy. We quickly force out a full restore thanks to Scald and its burn, then swap out to Enter to take some resisted hits himself. Sludge Bomb lands a poison, we go straight back to Roxy, poison forces out a second full restore, Scald lands another burn, and I mean, even though I'm not caring about if I do activate his guts or not, the secondary effects of my attacks are something I cannot control. They could just as easily not be doing that, but whatever. Finally, Throw falls to his status, poor guy, and that brings in Burgh. Sock. As will be the case for most physical attackers though, it just can't do anything to Roxy. It falls just like his roommate before him. Oh, and a fun fact about Marshall's Conkeldurr, which comes out next, it only has guts in the sequel games, which means right here it only has Sheer Force. Roxy finishes her show well and completely without worry about a guts boosted conk. She takes down the Elder and then deals with the Mienshao that comes in right after with just a couple of protects to force the Weasel to fall to a jump kick recoil. Unfortunately, since the experience is being shared two ways, it seems like there just isn't quite enough to get Foxy to evolve yet, but no matter. We don't need Bisharp for Chantal, it just makes her a bit easier. So anyway, Ghost Rider. Oh, I get it. Oh, that's cute. We lead Chica once more, resisting Ghost and easily taking hits from Cofagrigus while landing a Toxic. Unfortunately, even though it tried to attack our bird with Shadow Ball, it does not do the same when we try and swap to Poniard, who got burned on the switch, which renders him effectively useless. Oh well, we can't say we didn't try. Finally, Roxy comes in to do her due diligence, passing a wish out to Chica, who comes back in to be fully healed and land another Toxic on the turn that Chantal decides to heal. Bladder confuses the Coffin, Air Slash keeps it at bay, and we correctly land a third Toxic on Chantal's last chance to full restore. Being burned does put us on a little bit of a timer, but on the final turn that Cofagrigus has to attack, we swap into Roxy to take the 4 times resisted hit while the Coffin falls to poison. This brings in Golurk because it has Brick Break. So on the expected attack, we can use Baby to resist the hit, Eviolite allows her to easily survive the neutral Earthquake that follows, and so we take the opportunity to land another Toxic. Really going out of our way to utilize all the HP across our team as a resource as much as possible. We swap to Chica on the expected Earthquake, but Golurk decides to land a Curse on us instead, which combined with the burn damage we're taking as well, leaves her on just 12 remaining HP. Uh-oh. Well, it's not all bad. Since it obviously can't now be using a ground move, we easily switch back to Baby on another Brick Break. Then we decide, fuck it, let's just get the quick KO with Larvesta, since believe it or not, the bug has a base 60 speed, while Golurk has a base 55. So with level advantage, we definitely outspeed this, is what I would say, but turns out I completely overlooked the fact that this bug right here has a minus speed nature, so the Golurk does outspeed, lands another Earthquake, and Baby survives on just 1 remaining HP. Talk about a roll. Golurk falls to Flame Charge, and Baby stands victorious. Somehow. The good news is Chantal only has 2 remaining Pokemon, both of which are Elemental Ghosts. Freddy is a dragon that resists the elemental types of water and fire, and a dark type which resists ghosts. So he comes in to reenact the Bite of 83 by taking a big ol' chomp out of both Jellicent and Chandelure to win us the fight. Inspired by the murderous antics in front of him, Foxy levels up and evolves into the Bisharp that we always knew he could be. That level 52 requirement is just so awkward for this region, isn't it? Time for an encore performance. We equip him with the black glasses, giving him full reign to take down every single one of Caitlyn's Pokemon with Night Slash after Night Slash, one-shotting her entire team, except Gothitelle, who survives on 1 HP over and over while Caitlyn heals it. But that's the only hiccup, I swear, besides this one. And that means it is time for the real final showdown. We ascend the staircase, and another staircase, and another staircase, and finally come face to face with N for one final battle. Kind of. There's another one after. We all know there's another one after this. Regardless of that, though, we still have 3 not fully evolved Pokemon on the team. Awesome. N leads off the fight with his recently summoned Demon, a legendary Pokemon. Did I mention we have 3 not fully evolved Pokemon in the team? Okay, cool. Just want to make sure we're on the same page. In fact, we're going to lead off with one of them ourselves, Freddy the Zweilous. Fun fact about this fight, N will always go for the signature move of his dragon on the first turn. It's like he's desperate to show it off or something. Although, maybe not if we're immune? Okay, full disclosure, I don't actually know. But hey, that means we don't have to worry about a dragon move or anything. We will instead always resist the first attack that it goes for and can retaliate with a strong dragon pulse to start layering on the damage. And then as a second fun fact, Zekrom doesn't actually have a dragon type move. At all. I know I seemed really clever with the last turn and everything, but no, he just doesn't have a dragon move. In fact, the only other moves it has are Zen Headbutt and Giga Impact, so we bring in Foxy to resist the potential impact and the dragon opts to set up a light screen instead, which is totally fine. Foxy takes the next Fusion Bolt, but then lands a KO in retaliation with Night Slash. Next in is Kling Klang, except it isn't really Kling Klang at all. That is a Zoroark preparing to land a super effective Flamethrower or most likely a Focus Blast. Either one can be taken by Ennard much easier than Foxy, so we bring him in. Now we can land a Sludge Bomb on the opposing Fox, who finally shows his true colors, and then switch out to Roxy to finish stalling it out. But this is where I get cocky. I didn't even realize that Zoroark wasn't going for what I assumed it would be attacking with, Night Slash, and was instead only using Focus Blast as its main damaging move. So when I think, okay, this is a perfect time to pass a wish to Freddy, in reality, it's the exact opposite. Freddy comes in, and instead of a resisted slap on the wrist, he is met with a killer energy blast that not only lands, but wipes him off the face of the planet. There's only one fate I can think of worse than that, and it's being eaten alive by bugs. Which is exactly what we do by bringing in Baby to let it super effectively bug bite its way through the Zoroark. Good riddance. Against Caracosta, we simply swap back to Roxy, let her heal with Wish and Protect, narrowly survive a critical hit Stone Edge, ouch, and slowly but surely Scald whittles away at the tortoise, bringing it down for good. The real Kling Klang stands up next, but it doesn't even land a metal sound, so we pass a Wish out to Roxy, swap him in on a Thunderbolt, and when the gears finally do land their sound, Defiant activates to give him a massive attack boost. But unfortunately, Metal Claw never lands us with the third one that I think we need to take it out, and equally unfortunately, what I thought would be a range to survive 2 Thunderbolts is in reality a guaranteed kill. We've now lost 2 Pokemon just to end, and we know there's an even harder fight coming up after this one. I made mistakes, admittedly. I messed up, I got sloppy, and it looks like this might be the first F-Tier Nuzlocke that we don't win. But that doesn't mean I won't still give it my best. Baby comes in right after. Kling Klang is practically programmed to Metal Sound, so we KO and get a Flame Charge in absolutely free. This brings out Archeops next, and Roxy just barely misses the range to activate the opposing Mon's defeatist ability. But finding a last bit of strength, she holds on with less than 30 HP remaining after a strong acrobatics, fires off a Wish, and keeps herself in the fight. A second Scald barely misses out on killing the bird, but it lands the burn anyway, effectively sealing its fate, and it falls. Vanillux is N's last Pokemon, and despite the hail healing it and hurting us, we can offset that passive damage with Aqua Ring, and slowly but surely the ice cream is forced to melt under our intense pressure. The heat of Scald is too much, Vanillux falls, and so does N. And that means with just 4 Pokemon remaining, Garbodor, Alomomola, Volibee, and Larvesta, we are going into the Ghetsis fight. His lead, Cofagrigus, is up against the corpse of Freddy. Fitting, if you ask me. So we immediately switch him out to Ennard on the expected Toxic. Since he can't be poisoned, it's almost like that turn never happened at all. Woohoo! So on to our real turn 1. We switch in Chica to take the incoming Psychic, and then continue this song and dance for as long as we can. With Chica coming in on Psychic turns, which are sometimes Protect because AI is silly, and Ennard coming in on Toxic turns, which are never Protect because AI is still silly. This continues until I'm certain that Cofagrigus can no longer use Toxic, and Chica lands a Toxic of her own, only having to tank a resisted Shadow Ball in the process. And a few more actually, as she uses Air Slash to whittle down the coffin until Ghetsis takes pity on the poor thing and uses a full restore, but that just prompts another use of our Toxic. Now it's time to tag out to Roxy for a bit, but just long enough to pass a Wish over to Chica in order to heal her back up to full. Cofagrigus succumbs to the poison on the next turn, and that brings in Bisharp. I do try to get cheeky, landing a Flatter to confuse Bisharp, but it still manages to land a Stone Edge anyway. And then the confusion does allow Roxy to switch in for free though, so I'll take it. A few Scalds later, and it's bye-bye Chess Guy. Bouffalant is up next, and yeah, he looks scary, or stupid, but in actuality, there isn't much he can really do. His Wild Charge isn't stab, so even though it is super effective damage, it just isn't enough to compete with Roxy's bulk. In fact, stab head charge almost seems to do more damage, but even that our wish out heals. And we find ourselves in a pretty favorable position to have Scald take it out even without a burn. This though brings in Electros, who has a higher attack stat, stab, and its own wild charge. But believe it or not, it still doesn't kill. This Pokemon, Alomomola, is considered to be one of the absolute worst choices for an in-game playthrough of Pokemon Black and White by the official tearing community of Smogon, in case you forgot why we're here. But she refuses to die. Thanks to Recoil helping whittle it down, eventually Scald, with us outspeeding by the way, takes the eel out just as easily as the last. Hydreigon is out next, and that is just so free and easy for us to pass another Wish Out to Baby, who we bring in to try and deal some meaningful damage and conserve some PP on Roxy. This will ultimately end with her death, but Bug Bite taking out half of the dragon's HP is more than enough for us to work with. In fact, it gives us a free switch out to Ennard, who quickly gives up the idea of living through Stockpile to land a Toxic himself. And that is exactly what we need for Roxy to be able to power through this thing. Without damage on the dragon, there is no chance for Roxy herself to break through because Scald alone will not get her there. But with the whole team's help, we can do it. Roxy falls below 50 HP, but then heals back up with Wish, Leftovers, Aqua Ring, keeping her health high while Hydreigon falls to the poisoning, bringing in Ghetsis' last Pokemon. One we can deal damage to, Seismitoad. The mistake he makes of setting up the rain, which only boosts the power of our Scalds, backfires quickly as we land a critical hit, and 3 boosted attacks are more than enough to take down the overgrown tadpole. Ghetsis falls to the power of teamwork and sacrifice. For our hard-won efforts, Chica finally evolves into Mandibuzz, achieving her final form in our final moments as we wrap up the conclusion to one of my strangest Nuzlockes ever by saying, player defeated, Pokemon Black. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. I tried my best to keep things moving and snappy because, let's face it, a lot of fights kind of boil down to toxic stalling. I know a lot of people don't like that, but personally, I think the idea of using the HP on your Pokemon as a resource to try and outlast the opponent is a really fun way to approach Pokemon that you just don't get to experience otherwise. Then again, I also like Mildex and trading card games, so maybe there's a connection there. Take that, Smogon. I don't need fully evolved Pokemon, and Alomomola definitely doesn't deserve your lowest tier ranking. E, F, whatever you want to call it, that thing is busted. Move that thing to C. Move that thing to B. She deserves B tier at minimum. And you, yes you, made it all the way to the end of the video, so let me give you a heartfelt thank you. It really does mean a lot. Normal YouTuber stuff, like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. What was your favorite part? Check that you're subscribed, all that jazz. I really would appreciate it. That all being said, another challenge done means I'm all out of time for today, so I will just have to catch y'all in the next run. See ya.